Real good. Well, today we are recording, everybody. So we're capturing feedback and doing our best. We learned from last time that we're collecting a lot of information during the training about some of your experiences on the ground, and we feel that it's relevant to include in our reporting. So by all means, feel free to especially comment in the chat. But as we go through today, I understand we're going to be going through a lot of questions. We're going to have a pretty interactive session today, looking at agency client accountability and agency fiscal accountability specifically. But this is the last of our sessions together for this series of trainings. And Fred and Joanne have prepared a pretty solid deck for us today, and have shared that it's going to be a little lighter on the content and heavier on our sharing. So I'll let them explain what they mean by that. I will be ducking out for another session. I'm double booked today in a little while, but I'll be listening in for the first 20 minutes or so. So by all means, like I said, we're recording everything and we'll take your feedback as it pertains to the training and the program. So without further ado, I'll pass things off to Fred and Joanne.
Bring up the deck, but I don't suppose we need to introduce ourselves again at this point. Do you think, Fred?
I think we're good.
Yeah. So there we go. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, and we are posting the, Lawrence will post this PowerPoint to the CalCAPA website. And we also, I think last time we put some notes in the notes field, so you'll see some of our notes and some of our thinking as well.
Definitely. All right. You want to jump into Peter Drucker
Sure.
here?
I will. Yeah. I've always been a fan of Peter Drucker. He is, those of you who've gone through Roma training or are Roma trainers, implementers, or now advocates, you'll know that one of the backbones of our thinking is the wisdom of Peter Drucker. And for those of you who know the history, he spent most of his working career in the for-profit. In the last 15, 20 years of his work career, he really invested his work in human services, and he really believed in the nonprofit sector. He believed that the government was the funder and the nonprofit would be the essentially the delivery system. But what's always struck me is that one statement, and there it is right in front of us: human services organization must be information-based. Information must flow from the individuals doing the work to the board and the management, and it must flow back as well. And he was essentially setting this up for what we, think about performance, how well did we do, things like that. But that information-based is really, are you addressing your mission? Is it successful? Did we make change? Things like that. My take on it is that second sentence, that we are frequently data rich but information poor. In other words, we are reasonably good data collectors, but data, as you know, are numbers, words, letters. The question is, what do you do with that data? And the idea is you analyze it, evaluate, and it becomes information, something that you can use, apply, etc. I think we all understand that. So essentially, we know that we can do it. We have technology, software, we can train our folks. But do we really spend the time reviewing, interpreting, or synthesizing that data into information? So that's basically the message here. And really, is what Joe and I are doing today. We know that the LIHWAP program is ending in a few weeks. And the idea is to leave you with some fundamental information that is not just relevant to your administration of the water programs, but overall the world of community action. And we know that we have a mixed audience here in terms of agencies that wouldn't be community action, but are more specific to the water programs. But we want to make sure that take the opportunity to sort of reinforce what we think are really requirements of running programs in the nonprofit world. So we can look at the next slide, Joanne. Thank you. And again, think of this as a checklist here. Collect data has to be the right data. You're collecting the right thing. And you can see it along with me: timely, accurate, trustworthy, accessible. Can you reach it? Queryable. In other words, you collect it, you want to be able to use it. not just report it and, to a third party that who knows what they do with it half the time. Part of it is to create a culture. I think we all get off on, wow, this is a great program. Let's provide those services. Let's make those people feel good. Let's make ourselves feel good. But we also need to embed the importance of collecting that data as a way of finding out if what we're doing really makes a difference. And the thing that I think we really need to pay attention to is we need to have people with the right skills to extract and use the right data for decision making. But it also means that managers have to value those jobs as well for more than compliance. And essentially, we want to make sure that people know how to ask the right questions about collecting data. So if we move ahead. Okay. In the world that Joanne and I think about and work in, we essentially think about 4 platforms, and all of these are present. This is what we call the person-centered data-driven model. Some of you in the last year and a half may have attended those sessions that Joanne and I did vis-a-vis Cal Kappa. And essentially, this is summarized here. When you download, if you download this presentation, you'll see some additional information, but this gets at it. So we say the 4 operational pillars: people. Some of this, frankly, is kind of common sense, but at the same time, it doesn't always appear obvious that we need to think these things through. So straight up, who are the people and what are their roles and responsibilities when we collect and analyze data? And we're talking about building capacity within the agency itself, as well as other organizations that you might work with, partners, share data, things like that. The second one, and this really goes back to some of those flow charts that we had talked about in the second and third sessions. We need very clear work processes. Mapping identifies the flow of information, which we know parallels the flow of clients, and also what it takes in terms of staff time to do the work and the reporting. And a lot of times, these jobs are seen as an add-on to the direct service delivery of providing the benefit. I know some agencies rewrote their job descriptions to say, it's not just one person's job to collect the data, it's every person's job. How about platforms? Really talking about today electronic databases. I can't imagine anyone's using paper, but who knows? And you want to make sure that the database works, that it can connect and exchange data or interact with other databases and be clearly understood. And again, 2 ways of doing this: you build the capacity of the agency, you have to frankly budget for this, or you bring in outside vendors, consultants, but not only just on the software, but it's really what to do with the data and all that. So I think obviously there's a range of possibilities out there, but it's so important that the database, the software is understood and used by everyone. And lastly, of course, partners. The word community sometimes lost in community action. If you think about it, we all have our networks, whether it's formal or informal, formal partnerships, informal. And one of the things we want to talk about is sometimes we need to share the data. Frankly, in communities, it would make sense if people had agreements so you could have some way of finding out if a client in one agency went to clients and others. And that would appear to be whether it's the water programs or other programs. So that's what we call the 4 operational pillars. So if we look at the next slide, and this is Joanne and I here. So if you remember from the second presentation, we had the client and data flow chart, and you can see we annotated this. Just as a pure aside here, my own organization, the Center for Applied Management Practices, we have changed some of our focus. We have added staff. So we ourselves, as I speak, are literally going through and developing whole flow charts now for ourselves, using the same sort of, we're sort of taking our own medicine here, and essentially identifying. We have half a dozen different areas, divisions that we operate in, and we want to see how they overlap. And it's an exercise that everyone is working on, sort of map out our future. So we're actually doing this exact same thing ourselves. So as you can see here, again, there are 4 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, basically the type of contacts. In this case, it was really the LIHWAP program, the intake, eligibility, and then sharing information. So I guess what Joanne and I were looking at is a couple of questions. So, how well does this flow chart resemble the flow of clients in your agency? And has anyone actually at the moment, because we know we came into this pretty late in the program, taken the opportunity to develop a flow chart, whether it was for LIHWAP or for yourselves? So Joanne, is there anything you want to add on this and see if we can get some folks to participate here?
And I really just definitely want to make sure everybody knows, yeah, we're going to pause here for a moment because we really do want to hear from you. Both of those, like, I think we talked last time a little bit about, yeah, it does seem like the flow chart sort of fits for you for how LIHWAP works in your agency. But are there things that stood out to you that either, yeah, this really worked well, or this flow is not working all that well? And then, yeah, have you taken the time to chart it out, to do a flow chart of how data and your clients flow through your agency? Hey, Linda, I see a little bit of slight shake. I can see you, so I'll pick on you.
I'm contemplating here. We're a small organization, so we only have 4 people that work in our overall utility assistance program. They do the outreach, the intake, the processing of everything. So, and they just work amongst themselves. We've never flowed it, never charted it. But I think I commented last time that I liked the concept, and especially by having those people in the room putting their sticky notes up on what they do, how they add to the flow, and hearing it from them. Because so many times we sit around the conference table as management and make the plans for the rest of the world, right? And but really having the involvement of those that are doing the work is, I think, was a key for me to say, yeah, that makes total sense. So
yeah, I agree with you totally. And I don't know how many times I've, like, for example, Fred and I put our mostly Fred, and then I added a little bit, put together this the flow chart for LIHWAP, and then the way that working together with the water companies, we made stuff up. It was a good educated guess from a lot of experience, but we made stuff up. If we asked your frontline folks, is this really how it works, I'm sure they would come up with some really good suggestions about, well, no, instead of going this way, it's got to go that way, or you missed a step, or that sort of thing, right? So the people that are actually there, in the trenches doing the work, know the way it flows. We may be, folks that are a little bit, step or two away. I think our benefit can be that we can say, okay, that's the way it is flowing. Do you really think this is the most efficient way for it to flow, for example? Like, we might be able to see how things could work, that it's not the way it is working right now. So everyone else on the line here, you can put something in chat if you want. Have you ever taken the time to do a flow chart of how both data and your clients flow through your agency, like this one here? All right, we got somebody in chat.
Okay, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's actually, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce the name correctly. The Heli, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but yes, what was just said, that what goes on in their agency is similar, right? That was the chat. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So looking into the future a bit here, like like we said, then this is getting to the end of the LIHWAP program. Are there other programs or other activities that you do at your agency that do you think, yeah, maybe a flow chart would be a helpful tool for us to really see the way that data and clients are flowing through, and are we being the most efficient and effective? Can you think of instances where you might be, putting this into practice into the future?
I think especially with new programs, something new when we're trying to strategize and plan something and who's going to do what. We've not been big users of flow charts. We've just never done it because there's just so many of us, the limited number of people. So we all wear all the hats, and you just jump in when you need to and answer the phone or clean the toilet or whatever it is today. So, but I can see the value of this most definitely. And I think that especially for something new, when you're strategizing and planning and trying to figure out if you've got sufficient staff to cover it and you're not overloading somebody, etc. So
yeah, I can definitely understand the idea of being a really small organization and people fill in. So, I think it's better to think about it in, terms of we're talking about roles. It doesn't necessarily have to be one person that does each role, but we could all do them. And if somebody's taking a vacation, then somebody else can step in, right? That's one of the uses for this. And on top of it, are we missing things or are we duplicating things, right? Like I know, FHI, we're a really small organization, and there's a project program that we're running that there's 4 of us total that are involved in it, and no, we haven't done a flow chart with this because there's just 4 of us, right? And then came up to the point where we realized, we're supposed to be reporting to the funding source. And 2 of us at least thought that a third person was going to be taking the charge and putting together the report, right? Do you think that third person thought that they were the one that was going to be in charge of doing the report?
heck no.
No. Yeah. So even if you're like really small, there's times when just laying it out, like these are the things that need to be done. So when does a report need to get done and what needs to be into it too, right? So yeah, we're behind. Would have done a better job, yeah.
So Lawrence is wishing us well.
Yeah, Lawrence has to jump off. But there's let's not forget the survey at the end. Yep. And we'll try to come back to that, Lawrence, then for the survey at the end. Yeah.
All right, appreciate it. Everybody take care.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Bye. Yeah, see that Chris put in, we don't have a flow chart for LIHWAP, but looks like a pretty good flow. Okay. So yeah. So yeah, we could move on, I suppose, Fred. If
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
yeah. But do some thinking about it, like other places in your agency or other processes in your agency where, this might actually be a useful thing to do, an activity to spend a little bit of time on, say, for a day. So we're gonna turn back and look at some of these things that we've done a little talking about this before. So the LIHWAP checklist, but this is put into a process, the pattern that fits the 4 pillars that Fred was talking about there. So this is information that we've talked about before, but it's in terms of, in this case, for the data management, this is in terms of the people. So yeah, who collects the data? And are they formally assigned? Yeah, Linda, I don't know, are yours formally assigned even though you fill in for each other?
On or off here. Not well, yeah, there are some assignments, we do a lot, we get a lot of our calls on a 800 line. We have a voice message and press this, press that, depending on what you're applying for. And so we have a person that is assigned that duty, but if she's sick or she's off that day, then somebody steps in to do it, and because it's only 4 of them, they know, if somebody doesn't do that today, then we don't have anything to work on, because that starts the process for us. So yeah. So yes, there are people that are assigned certain things, but in general, they all do outreach, intake, and so on.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, small organizations, there's a lot of, co-working and a lot of purposes here. Yeah. Like the example I was saying, it still helps to say, like, okay, you're the person that, is the primary person that's responsible for this duty. So yeah. Okay. So come here. There we are. I got 2 of them. So where is the data collected would be the next item on the checklist, right? Okay. Some cases is like, when is it during intake assessment or other places during the process? So there's different kinds of data you might be collecting at different points, right? And is follow-up data collected? And if so, what? So just think about LIHWAP. What sort of follow-up data is collected, if any? And for example, a type of follow-up data for that might be, did the water bill get paid? That's basically right.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably, I guess, mandatory data points that must be turned in, but is the agency, especially if it's community action, taking advantage of that additional data to look at the status of the client? In other words, is this a client where this is a Band-Aid that it'll get them through this current one, or is this something that is an unusual occurrence that the person can do better? Are they going to continue to need support? And that's what you would do with the data, is query it and get to know essentially a profile of who your clients are. And it's not a value judgment, it's just what's their status,
Yeah.
There's so many answers, but I think the point is, if you're doing all of this, think about what other use you have for that data in terms of your overall mission of working with low-income people.
Yes. And can you leverage some of that to serve a different purpose in
Right.
your annual report to other funders? If you're planning, if you're designing a new program, can you pull any of it in for that? Like, how effective was this water program, and what worked and what didn't, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the next checkbox, are case records reviewed on a regular basis? Is there a formal review process? So like, we're getting to the point of like getting close to wrap up here. So what is the review process for the data that has been collected? And that's definitely something that'd be wonderful to hear somebody, either unmute and talk or put something in chat about, what do you have planned for this final wrap up? How are you going to get that one done? To presume there is some kind of a final wrap up.
Well, yeah, that's that is a presumption, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know if you guys know that we found out today that there's a pretty good possibility that they're extending the contract through the end of December. So
No, we have not heard that.
yeah, so we were told end of September. First, we were told end of August, and then got another month through the end of September. And today they said that they're pretty sure they're going to have it through the end of December, which is, gives us a little more time, because
Wow.
they worked on this massive marketing campaign, and it's starting to generate lots of leads. And
That's great.
yeah, so that was good.
It is good. Yeah.
It's I'm just laughing. It would have been helpful to know that, show, because
Wow.
because what I'm saying is this message is, again, it takes a little more importance, because if you in fact have that, what would be almost a 6-month extension, 5-month extension, do it now, take advantage of these connections, learn about the clients, see what you can do. I mean, you know, I'll take a flight of fancy here for a moment. There's a lot of interest in universal basic income. I think most of you are familiar with, essentially you would provide a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly payment to a low-income person without really any strings. The amount, and there's almost 1,000 of these demos going on in the United States. There's several that I'm aware of in California. And what does happen is most of the research indicates that people use these funds appropriately. In other words, for activities, daily living, basic support. So the question is, what's your role in this? Because this to me is a direct challenge to the work that we do. And it seems to me that the agencies need to be able to demonstrate that what they can do is at least equal, if not better, and holistically looking at the client. That's what the whole point of universal basic income is. People, when they research it, they spend it on housing, they spend it on food, they spend it on education, recreation, clothing, right? So in other words, it's looking holistically at the family. In a way, that's what community action was set up to do, water just being a piece of that. So I'm just trying to encourage everyone to think about going down the road here. I mean, I could probably, you know, have a couple of baseball caps and put one called community action, the other called universal income, and make a passionate statement about either delivery system. Okay. And I was personally involved in one in Denver called the Denver Day Works program, where they gave people 75 bucks a day who were living in the streets, but they also had them working. And again, we studied it, and guess what? The folks used the money appropriately. I mean, there it was, and didn't need a giant bureaucracy to help them do what they were doing. So that's a whole other thing we can get out, but I just want to leave that with you, that there is a certain, how could I say, timetable here to think about these things, and how can we do a job. And one of our jobs is about getting that basic data. If you think about the corporate sector, you know, whether it's you know, Microsoft or a car company, they live and die by the data, right? Who are the customers? What do they like? What are their sales? What's their income? Can they buy cash? Do they use loans? I mean, it's the same thing, you know. Anyway, enough of my ranting and raving here.
Ranting, yeah. Yeah, but I think it brings up so like we can talk about using the data to show like what we did, and that's one side of it. But what Fred's saying there is like, okay, let's get a little speculative, and how does what we did or what we continue to do compare to alternatives? Your universal basic income is an alternative. There could be others. Like, I would be willing to bet you've already done some thinking about, if they would have just given us the money and let us figure out the best way to use it, we could have gotten water bills paid much more effectively. Right? So how would it, in that alternate world, how would it have worked? Yeah, it's worth thinking about it for a couple of reasons. One is to, like, make sure your system is working good. The other is you're going to be reporting out, through CalCAPA at least, about the pros and cons, the advantages and challenges of this program. In theory, the state is going to use that information. In theory, they're going to use the information the next time they come up with a program. So if you can provide them with some data that really supports, and then with analyzing the data in a way that shows, it could have been much more effective in other ways. Would that be helpful? Yeah. But then we need to collect and then analyze the data to get there.
Just sort of think about it. Okay.
Yeah. So there's one more. There we are. Yeah, we're kind of super.
Yeah, it's in the same checklist, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we just got down to the end of this first one for people. So we got to think about supervision, because supervision is key to keeping things moving and analyzing where things are going and when things are going well and not. So yeah, what kind of supervision? Okay, here's the next one. We got all of them in the checkboxes this time. The processes, like how are you entering the data into the database? Like, for example, are you writing on handwritten forms, or writing on forms and then transferring the data? Are you getting the information from the client and typing it in yourself? Is the client entering data into a form? So a lot of different ways you can enter data.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and this is the risk, if it is on a paper form, hopefully a form, not just a piece of paper, the longer it stays on the piece of paper and it's not entered into software, the more likelihood it's missed. It's a general rule of thumb. So hopefully there is either real-time data entry or what we call batch data entry, where at some point you take the time, you schedule it, and you enter it into the database. So that's been pretty well researched, and the better practice is to do it as soon as you can. Okay, so.
And that fits in with is it this particular data, LIHWAP, is it collected online or in person? And I know we've had a discussion that, like sometimes it may be over the phone, sometimes people might walk in. They, there seems to be a bit of, doing it online, but maybe not so much for this program. But what are the advantages and the challenges of collecting data through online when people are typing in their own stuff through an online form? And there are both advantages and challenges to that one.
I'd be curious if anyone actually have clients going online and basically entering some fundamental information prior or to a caseworker. I'd be curious if anyone would maybe put a note into chat. In other words, is there a client portal? That's, I believe, the correct language here. Where I'm aware that these tools exist. We have one, others do as well, where clients can actually go in, look at the information, almost do a preliminary intake on their own. So the role of the caseworker is a little bit different. Instead of doing that primary, they're basically validating it. When they do have a meeting, they have the information in front of them. That's a sea change, and some of that was pushed ahead because of COVID, but it was occurring prior to that. I think it just got expedited. So Celia, you have a response there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have the LIHWAP application form online where customers can actually fill in the application and submit their documents online. We had to pause that feature in the program primarily because we've been getting applications that are not complete, in the sense that the documents that they should submit is not what they are sending in, or they're not sending in everything that needs to be supporting their application. So what's happening is we're spending more time following up with these people who submitted their applications online and running after them than processing new applications. So we put a pause on that because we're, trying to speed up our LIHWAP program processes. So but the online application, the application is still available on our website. They can, it's on a PDF fillable format where they can type in their responses and then print it out and submit it to us either by mail, or they can walk it in. And hopefully it also has the required documentation. Many applicants will, you tell them like, these are the documents that you need to submit, but like maybe a generous percentage would be like 5% would submit the right documents. So it's still, for us, the most effective way is to actually have them walk in, bring in their application, bring in all the documents, so we can tell them like, no, this one lacks this page, or this one, you need to submit this, etc., etc. We find it easier for them to understand when it's a face-to-face encounter.
That's good feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a human way of probably dealing with that, a technological way of dealing with it. This again gives that argument a little bit about the universal basic income, where you do away with a lot of the paperwork, you know. Uh,
Right. Yeah,
you know,
and,
it's,
yeah, LIHWAP definitely, and LIHWAP very much too, because of the incredible diversity of the supportive documents you have to submit. Yeah, I could see why it would be so hard for people to first find what they're supposed to produce and then give you the right pieces of paper. And then, for your staff to be trained to read through multiple different formats of supporting document. And yeah, it's a complex process. Definitely.
And definitely, like, like the documents that they need to submit is very straightforward. But then again, there are alternate documents that they can submit. Like, for example, if they're supposed to submit their social security number, but if they don't want to do that, then they can submit a government issued ID with their face on it, or for the income. Well, they can supposed to submit their their pay stubs for the last 30 days. But then again, they can also submit a certification that they're not employed. So many things. So the program itself is very complicated.
right.
I agree.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully you provide some feedback to the funder, because a lot of times people design programs without realizing what it really takes to do, and you are right there. And they need to listen to us, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Maybe wishful thinking, Celia, but
In our dreams.
yeah.
And I would also say the majority of times they do that.
Yeah, receptive to some suggestions. Like Linda is like covering her face, but like they listen to us, and then they nod their heads, and then
Yeah, then they go about their business. Yeah, right.
yes.
There is a really big push to do a universal application, and this started with our Public Utilities Commission. And they're not understanding the issues that we face with that concept. And because we're a small agency, and I know this isn't transferable really to the larger ones because of the volume, but in our case, we finally boiled it down because we were so sick of sending the application back. You didn't put this in, and or calling them or whatever, that we have it really finely tuned. They call this 800 number. They leave their name and their phone number, and that's all they have to give us. And then within 48 hours, we call them back and we physically take the application over the phone. That way we know that all of the blanks are filled in. And based on that, we then turn around a letter to them, customized to them, that says, okay, based on your application, I need your social security letter, award letter. I need this for your daughter who's working, or whatever the case may be. And it's specific to that person. And we really do have a much better response with getting the proper information back from using that process. But a lot of us, there are two automated systems in California, ServTrack and Hancock, and they call those the front end systems, and they interface with the CSD system. So we enter our data into ServTrack in our case, and then push the button and it goes to CSD. ServTrack implemented a kiosk type program where there were computers around their county and their pilot to do applications for LIHWAP. And they ended up saying that they spent more time fixing the computers and dealing with the technical issues than they got in the number of applications that came through. So it's almost like the homeless issue, deal with the drug and alcohol problems and the mental health problems, and then you're going to deal with homelessness. I mean, we in the industry know that, deal with people's lack of capability to use the technical equipment that, we're all so accustomed to, but, give them the opportunity for the training and then switch over to the universal process. But you can't just go, okay, world, everything's automated now, so fill out all your applications online. What does online mean? I don't have a computer. Oh, I don't have a smartphone. Oh, so I'm now left behind.
Mhm.
So focus on the real problem, not the perceived.
Beautifully said, Linda.
Yeah, no, obviously it's a multi-faceted issue here. I mean, it's all over the place. But again, we've been, when you think about it, we've been operating human services, pretty much the same way for the past 50, 60 years. And I mean, there's no one sitting down and saying, okay, is there another way of doing this? But that's a whole other discussion we're kind of steering out here, but so want to bring this back.
I'll just say that, we really do in this business. I think it's unfortunate, but in order to really help people, you have to hold their hand through the process. So
yeah, I could see from the chat others have experienced similar situations. So
Sure. Yes, because as Linda said, not everybody is trained to not just trained to work with the online technology, but trained to think in terms of collecting the particular types of forms and data. That's a different way of thinking. And on top of it, we're asking people that may be in very difficult times in their life where there's chaos going on and everything is stressful, which makes it so much harder to think clearly. So I do think Kathy had put in a checklist. Beautiful. Checklists are wonderful. Great starting point. And as you're also saying, Kathy, a lot of times you don't get people that have, even with that, given you all the information you need. So that's why the human touch on the staff side comes in, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Now you have to accept all applications, even with documentation like it. Okay. Is that to start the date tracking for it, or?
The problem is with LIHWAP, if the applicant is not submitting the complete application plus the required documents, we do not accept their applications, right? Unless if it's a walk-in, unless it's mailed in, then we contact the applicant and tell them, like, look, submit this, and we provide, visual, how do you say it, examples. Like, we give them a sample of what we want so that there is no mistaking what we need and what they should submit. However, with LIHWAP, CSD is now telling us we cannot reject any application. We have to accept them and then go back and ask them, submit this, this, and this. So it's giving us more work, actually, because now we have to follow up on each and every one of them. Okay, because we accepted our application, now we're obliged to complete the application. Not like before. If we don't accept their application, they're obliged to come back and submit what we require. This time around with LIHWAP, it's difficult. It's different. CST is telling us you cannot reject any application. You have to get it and then ask them, submit this. So it's a lot of follow-up on our part for people to submit the right documents. The right documents is always difficult. You know, like you tell them, oh, you have to provide your bill, water bill. And then they will just provide us with the first page, not all the pages that CSD requires from us or something like that. You know, like it's, but anyways, enough of our terrible tales of woe.
It's all very real. Yeah.
Sounds like a script for a Netflix movie, you know?
The woes of
The woes of LIHWAP. Yeah, that sounds great. Actually, it's who knows, right? All right, so Joanne, what do we have on our next one here?
Yeah, platforms.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, it does sound in at the end it needs to go into a separate database at the state. Do you use the same database in your agency for LIHWAP as you do for others?
Yes.
That's good. Good. That's the question. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, sorry, Joy, just curious from anyone wants to put into chat, should we assume that majority of agencies have LIHWAP as a program within an agency-wide database, or is it a standalone application? And we understand it has to go into CSD.
It's as far as I know, it's the exact same database, but
Okay.
it has a box there that says LIHWAP.
All right.
So that it's disaggregated when they process it in Sacramento.
Is there anyone else on the line that works with their database differently? You would put it in chat if you want, or give you a minute to think about it. But but it sounds like for a lot of folks there is an agency-wide database. Is that a reasonable assumption, that same database across your entire agency? Okay, at least a couple
Like,
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Workable. So report.
Yeah.
So who? This gets back into that, like staff looking at the people in the staffing, like who generates reports? Linda, does everybody at your agency generate reports?
Various types of reports certain people are responsible for, but the overall report to CSD is done by one person.
Okay. And is there a different person that reviews it before it gets sent?
No, she's been doing it for 49 years, so we don't really have any issues, you know. And if she goes on vacation, which she does occasionally, then we just wait for a week. It's not like, you know, in Celia's case, she's processing hundreds or thousands of applications a week, and you know, we're processing maybe that many a month, you know, a few hundred a month. So if we don't file a report in 1 week, it doesn't hurt us. So
makes sense. So Celia, then do you have like one specific person responsible for LIHWAP reporting?
No. We have several different types of report that are aggregated, and they come from different people. Like, you know, when we do a report on a program, it is comprised of several different pieces. For example, we have to compile labor costs, materials costs, admin costs, direct service costs, you know, and all of these things. And then somebody does the equipment, somebody does the time, labor, somebody does, you know, like everything. And then our accountant or fiscal officer provides the labor, and then she aggregates the full report into one sort of monthly report. So that's how we do it. So it's a tedious process. And yeah, so it's and then of course, like it depends on how many applications we receive. With LIHWAP, it's easier, like as soon as we get the applications, it's processed, reviewed, and if it's complete, you enter it in core, and then it goes through, pledges are made, it goes through, everything is done. With the other programs that we implement, it's more difficult because we have to aggregate several pieces together. But with LIHWAP, with LIHIP, UA assistance is easier. All you need to do is process the application, determine how much assistance this person is eligible for, enter it into the system, and it goes through.
Good. Yeah, I think the message here is it's for LIHWAP, but in fact, it's really universal in your agency. I think you could figure that out by now. In other words, this applies across the agency, and that's what we're trying to get at here is, get the basic information of how your reports, who it is, where does it go to, how do you, in a way, massage those reports for the different audiences. How do you take those wonderful photos and anecdotal stories with everyone smiling and put data behind it? And the other issue is the satisfaction survey. I mean, we talked earlier about you learn a lot talking to your customers, your clients. So
Yeah, so who on the line here, who does use satisfaction surveys and how frequently? You don't?
We
Lynn?
don't.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Primarily because there's a lot of people walking in, a lot of applications that we are processing on a daily basis. It could run from 100 to 150 to 200 applications that are being processed. So this is an additional work that we don't have time for. However, the good thing is clients who are satisfied with the service that they receive from us do not even need to be prompted to send us thank you letters or cards informing us that they're very grateful for the help that they received, that so-and-so, was very professional and very nice in helping them and things like that. So we do get a lot of that from our clients. We do get a lot of rude clients too. Like I just received an email this morning from somebody in our organization, not from my department, saying like somebody called me and wanted to know who to contact for a complaint. And while she was talking to this client who wouldn't give her name, I don't know how the conversation went, but in the end, this client said she's a rude, dirty Mexican. So, like that's the type of people sometimes we have the fortune to meet. All right. But there are several who are very good, very, very grateful for the assistance that they receive. Like, for example, last Friday at the LA Convention Center, because we were helping a lot of people, a lot of them came by and said, can we hug you? Something like that. So,
Nice.
like takes all kinds.
yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully more of the ones that are happy and give hugs than the ones that say things like that.
Probably the majority. I see Clint did put a QR code.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Not a surprise. I mean, I use QR codes. I really don't like them, but there they are. And you have to understand a little bit how it works and how your phone works in order to make sure it works, but there it is. All right.
Seems to be the wave of the future though, so.
Oh yeah, it's a quick way of doing it.
Yeah, Clint, maybe
It's now very, very common, like before, like say QR code, nobody knew what it was, but now people are getting to learn about it because it's becoming more and more, mainstream, but still, we don't have time.
Yeah, we also have an iPad that goes to the survey in our UA lobby. So when people are done with their appointments, they can take it. But we've had like 2 surveys in the last 3 years.
Wow, wow.
We-
But some,
My guess, Clint, is that your folks do a good job. And so nobody's pissed off about it, right?
No, actually, we get a lot of pissed off people because we don't have all the extra money. All the clients have been trained that, oh, there's all this PG&E money right now. And then they come in and they haven't paid their bill in a year and it's $10,000 and we can't help them at all. And they're like, what do you mean you can't help me? We actually just had to put one of those automatic door closers on our UA door because people were getting so mad they were slamming it all the time.
Wow.
Wow.
As they're slamming the door, they're not thinking about using the QR code.
Yeah, so we had to put a door shusher on there, so now they can't slam it. They try and slam it, and it closes nice and quiet now.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is about the surveys, other than obviously sometimes you get more if you give incentives, but is it worth it?
Yeah. All right. Well, obviously there's a lot going on here. So,
We actually do surveys, paper surveys. We send it out with the final letter, letting people know how much money they're getting or whatever we're required to do with CSD. And so we send out a survey, and we started doing that when we became the Community Action Agency about 10 years ago, because we can get credit for the services and the surveys and the results and the outcomes, if you will. And we actually get a pretty good response rate. I can't remember if we provide a return envelope. It seems to me, I know we used to, a stamped return envelope. We really went above and beyond because we wanted to get that feedback. And those surveys now, they go into a report to the board. Every board meeting, they get a summary of all of the good, bad, and ugly that we get, very briefly summarized, obviously, and no names attached, but they get that report, so that and it's been good, because it's also an opportunity if somebody's not happy with something, they can let us know and we can follow up on it. But yeah, we just had our the programs, the COVID money set a lot of people up. And we started out, we paid this guy $1,000 on his bill the first year. The second year he let it ride up to $3,500. We were able to put 3 contracts together to help him pay the $3,500. Now he's back with another $3,500 bill. Well, you did it last time, so why can't you do it this time? And Celia said, the nastiness that somebody said about somebody there, this guy just carried it to a whole new level. About I'm sure you don't have any white males over age 50 working in your office. And then when he found out that we did, then he changed to some other topic that he wanted to get off on, and so on. So we've literally blocked him from our email. We will not accept his phone calls. And we sent him a letter and said, take your business up with CSD. We're done with you. Because he didn't send us all the pages of his documentation. And we asked for all the pages, and he then implied that we were singling him out because he was a white male over age 50. It's just like, dude, are you kidding me? So yeah, it gets ugly. It really does. But I think that we're only going to see the beginning. We're seeing the beginning of it. I think it's going to really hit us hard when the money's gone and people are told, no, we can only pay, $200, and you already got your service this year, so you have to wait a year. we're going to have a lot of
Yeah.
very,
Yep. Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
well,
I hope
so-
you did some nice things together as a staff after you kicked his butt out the door and took care of yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So we got, what's next here? Sometimes free isn't free enough. Yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes free is too much. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I would never use that word free. I try to, for both clients and staff, it's not free. Someone's paying for it. It's just a matter of, you may not be paying for it, but it's never free. So
Mhm.
I try to take that word out of my vocabulary. So
Yeah, we keep on saying like, there is no out-of-pocket cost for you because this is actually supported by taxpayers.
yeah,
Taxes that you paid before and taxes that are being paid by some of the people who work with you, some of your relatives and things like that. So it has to be explained to them. But we have to tell them like this has, and because of the low income households that we assist, we always have to tell them that this assistance does not impact your other program benefits. Okay, because sometimes they're thinking like, oh, this might affect my
Right.
CalFresh or my WIC or my, like things. So this is some of those things that we still have to explain to them. No, it won't affect this or that.
That makes sense. So more personal touch, more face-to-face type of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So managing funds, that's a whole nother area of accountability and definitely involved in LIHWAP too. So, so it's a really important question to be asking then. How do you link your program activity to the fiscal accounting and budgeting? I know Celia, we're talking about all the different types of reports, and then it needs to get aggregated, and somebody must be doing that.
Yes, like the whole process, the whole program operations is linked to fiscal accounting and budgeting. We're always very mindful of that. And then we have to also take into account program guidelines, what is allowable, what is not allowable, things like that. So all of these things have to be taken into account when we implement the program. We just can't really nearly say, okay, this person gets $1,000 assistance, this person gets 500. We always have to justify how and why we're doing certain things. And this has to be supported by the program guidelines, by certain policies that we are implementing, that the policies has to be uniformly implemented throughout the program.
And on top of it, like the check box here, somebody needs to be monitoring how much is in the fund balance. And then you have decisions to make if it's getting low, or what's happened occasionally here, it sounds, like if you're not spending at the rate that the state says you should be spending it at, you need to be able to account for that too, right?
Yeah. So we're always looking at benchmarks, primarily because the last few years, CSD has been, doing a three-factor formula to determine how much allocation each of the agencies is going to get. And if you don't hit your benchmarks, you have the good fortune of losing some of your allocation, which means, throughout the line, losing the allocation is not only reducing the number of people that you can serve, but also it could mean that you have to lay off certain staff, which is something that nobody likes to do. So we were always taking a look at that. The good thing is with LIHWAP and certain other programs that had been, dumped on us due to COVID, CSD has suspended some of this, penalties or, whatever, if we don't hit our targets, because now we're doing so many programs all at the same time, not like before. But not hitting targets do have consequences for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, all of these things are, really important for the accountability for your agency, taking into account all of the different things we have in our checklist here. Yeah. 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 So who gets to know about, that last one there, does a fiscal office apprise program staff of fund balances? Yeah, who knows, on your team, what the fund balance is and whether you're hitting your targets or benchmarks or not? Does
Um,
everybody?
Program managers and supervisors, because they are, like going, like for me, I'm looking at the fund balances and asking like, where are we on this? And, like, why are we low on this? Like things like that. So the supervisors and program managers are, have the reports, and they also look at this thing and they monitor it at all times to make sure that they are hitting targets. So like, for example, we have to have like a calculation of burn rates every month. And then we have a calculation of burn rates every week. So when we're hitting that, that's fine. Or we're exceeding that, that's also a little bit good, on the good side. But if not hitting the burn rate, that's a problem for us.
Okay. But then there's enough people that know what you're hitting so that you can get together and make plans and make changes as needed. Yeah.
The supervisors and managers are the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rank and file stuff, they don't need to, because we just give them, like, these are the things that you need to do, and then of course there's a department meeting where everybody's apprised what's going on with the programs and things like that. But on a daily basis, only the monitoring of program matters, as far as financials, as far as targets, budgets, and things like that are concerned. It's only confined to the top level staff.
So imagine it functions a little differently for you, Linda, as far as how the information shared about hitting your targets and that kind of thing.
Yeah, again, because we're so small, but I'm laughing because I think it was 2019, I went out and bought a big whiteboard. And because I was tired of nobody really knowing where we were, except the upper management. And I feel like it has to be known by everybody. We all got to buy into this. So by the whiteboard, I write up all the contracts, the goals, and what are the status at that point, and so on. And I was in there the other day, and the whiteboard is still leaning against the wall, and it still has my 2019 attempt to do it. But I had a program director who just wasn't into sharing that information. She didn't feel that the staff needed to know that. She felt that they just needed to do their job and be, I'll give you the jobs you need to do this week and get them done. And since that, just in defense of since 2019, we did start utilizing our ServTrack system more, because she also was one that was not, she was a paper person. And, she had her spreadsheets and she highlighted everything in all kinds of colors and everything. But she didn't, put it up there for everybody to see. And she didn't use ServTrack to the extent that it could be used. And so then when she retired, the new person is super gung-ho tech person. And so now ServTrack is being used the way that it should be, and anybody can go in at any time and see where we're at with anything. So it is much improved. And I think the morale has changed immensely, because people are buying in. They feel like they're a part of the process, and they can see where their piece fits into the puzzle. So, you know, it's a good thing.
Good.
Yes.
Good. That's good. So let's take a look at the last one here, Joanne.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but I'm total in favor of people knowing how their piece fits in with the whole.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this in a way, this sort of sums it up here. I mean, we're trying to integrate the pieces here. And again, the purpose of the slide is to, look at the relation, especially now that you have a bit of an extension, the relationship between your agency and the water companies. That's trying to get that sort of essentially the data sharing here. How is it shared? How often, as Joanna was talking about? And I guess the last question is, do any of these 7 steps resonate or may be useful in terms of, working together, marketing, publicizing, management, sharing data? I don't know if you have a formal MOU like in number 4, if the sharing of information on a regular basis, et cetera. So we sort of leave you with this flow chart, so to speak, that's really trying to integrate the 2 systems as we know them, and pretty much, as much as we can do late in the game here to see if we can get something out of these relationships, more than just we provided the service, but the impact of the service and how it changed and benefited our community, which is really what ultimately the goal is here. So I guess open to any questions, thoughts, whether Joanne or anyone else here would be,
Yeah, I hear it. This is kind of like the culmination of everything we've been talking about, and also thinking about. So yeah, you've got a few more months of this program, that it is wrapping up. You're moving on to other things as well. So like, what are the lessons learned that you want to take with you?
We do have a hard job.
Yep, you do have a hard job.
You do. I agree.
That's the whole point of this thing. But like we have to do what we have to do, and sometimes I think like my staff have, because they do deal directly with clients, are gratified when they do get the thank you notes. And sometimes people would come in with a basket of fruit for them after they've been helped, which is a good thing. They feel good about themselves when they have helped somebody. And that's like that's part of how we deal with the public. And we will occasionally get somebody who is belligerent and who is not who has an attitude, but overall the program is good. It's a hard thing to do, but it has its blessings and things like that. Staff have been, I know what Linda said, that when people know what's going on and what their role is in the whole scenario, then they are more invested. And we do try to give them that piece, not by having them see where we're at exactly in the program, but like informing them what's going on, getting their opinions and suggestions on how we can better serve the public, anything that that they think that can improve whatever we're doing, and all of these things, because it's just not possible for everyone to have, to log on to ServTrack and or Core and see where we're at. So that's a difficult thing for us to do, primarily because we're serving, like more people than other smaller agencies. But I think, on the overall, it's a good program to do. The challenges are there, but There are
If-
frustrations, but there
Yeah, the
are
last 2
rewards.
years have been worth it. All of that hard work, has it been worth it?
Well, yes, I would say, like, yes, primarily because we've been able to help people. And despite the frustrations that we felt, all the challenges that we tried to hurdle, and all the things that we're trying to do, it's still, helping people. And that's something that, on the balance of things, it's a good thing to do.
Wow. All right.
Message, yeah. That's a
Oh.
good message. Hopefully other folks feel the same way. I know, Linda, you were kind of shaking your head that, yeah. Yeah, it seems like it was a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think this is my 44th year with Project Go. And I find I learn something new every day. And I'm a learner. Cal Kappa is doing the Strength Finders thing as a part of LIHWAP as well. And so I found out I'm a learner. I didn't know that in all these years, but I finally have a name for it, I guess. But I really do enjoy learning new things. And there is a lot of frustration with people who are not happy ever. They're the people that no matter where they go, there they are. And they're never gonna find happiness, apparently. And that can be frustrating, but it seems like every day there's something that gives me that glimmer of a thank you from somebody or a staff person who, felt good about something somebody said or something. So, it brings me back one more day. I'll come back. Okay, I'm going to work tomorrow because today I heard something good. So I find great value in what we do. And I don't only look at the small scale of that we're helping individual people, but I believe we're helping the world, the planet Earth, with the conservation stuff that we do. I don't think we get enough credit for that. We're really doing a lot to save this planet, and that gives me a lot of gratification. So I can find good in a lot of stuff. And so I appreciate this job. I landed in it as a fluke, and I stuck with it all these years because it just intrigued me so much.
Wow.
Glad you did. And that was
Good. It's a
that's
wonderful
right.
testimonial. Yeah. So we this is, I guess, the last one. I guess you could always reach Joanne or myself if you had any questions. You could certainly talk to Lawrence at Cal Kappa.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah. So Joanne, anything you want to add in terms of wrapping up or what?
I'm glad to have been spending time with you folks, and I'm glad you're out there doing the good work there in California, and keep it up. And I guess we'll give you the gift of the last few minutes of time to do with as you will.
Gwen, is your company doing the marketing campaign for CSD? No. When you said your initials, it's similar to the initials of the company that they're using. So
Don't know. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're financial health
Fiona.
institute.
Fiona is the one doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting though. Cool. Well, y'all are free to leave.
Okay. Well, thank
Thank
you all
you.
for being here. And as I said, you could get the 12 or so slides from the Cal Kappa website. So thank you all, and appreciate you being here. So take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.